phone until Carla gets back. So please join me in welcoming our candidates for House District 54. We're privileged to have two strong Republicans vying for that seat. So Nina Anderson is one of those candidates. Come on up. And Jason Biles is the other one. I did it alphabetically.
Alphabetically is good.
Although the last names that start with A and B, I had to.
It's hard to get.
So, okay. Go ahead and start with your opening comments, and we'll start with Nina, and then when we do the closing comments, Jason, we'll start with you.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Diane, and thank you guys all for being here. Nina Anderson. I am running, of course, as we already know, for House District 54. I think that House District 54 deserves representation that's grounded in real-world experience, that has deliverables that have been met, has experience in showing up and making sure that those results are delivered. I'm a business owner. I'm a workforce advocate. I've owned Express Employment for 20 years. In addition to that, I've spent many years working with employers, with workforce, with educators, with community leaders and policymakers to solve these real-world problems that we have in our district, from jobs into housing, healthcare access, affordability, and then the regulatory burdens that are facing our state. I believe in conservative principles that include limited government, being fiscally responsible. You don't own a business for 20 years without being fiscally responsible. Fighting for local control, making sure that we have respect for the constitutions, both at the state and the federal. And these principles, of course, matter most when they're used to improve our daily lives. When families can afford to stay here, when we can keep students here after they graduate. Both of my kids have left, so that is very near and dear to my heart as well. Where businesses can grow and prosper and decisions are made locally, not dictated in Denver. This district deserves those things, the steady leadership, practical solutions, and someone who knows how to deliver those results. And that's why I'm running for House District 54. I hope today to earn your support. Thank you again, all, for being here.
Well, thank you all for taking time out of your really busy schedules to come here on a Monday lunch. I really appreciate seeing all of you guys here. Most of you I know, but for those who don't actually know me, my name is Jason Bias, and I'm running to be your next representative for House District 54. I am the former president of Turning Point USA at CMU, where I successfully brought the chapter here in Mesa County, basically to give young conservatives on campus a platform to speak out on their ideas and their beliefs and represent the values that are true to Mesa County. I'm a young father of 3, and my beautiful wife of almost 7 years, Matea, is here. She's actually here to testify on my behalf that I'm not making all this up. This is all coming out true. I've grown up in this valley, and I've been a Mesa County resident for almost 20 years now. And actually, my wife and all 3 of my kids were born here at St. Mary's. And we have dedicated and committed to keeping our roots planted on Mesa County, raising our kids here, and hopefully they stay as well. I've been a staunch conservative and an America First advocate my whole life. I recently graduated college at Colorado Mesa University, where I learned how to create policy, debate properly, and outmaneuver our globalist, woke, far-left adversaries. I'm very blessed to have been able to receive a college degree locally in my district, actually, while raising 3 kids and working full-time to provide for my whole family. With my collegiate education and traveling across the entire district, I am more than ready to represent our values, defend your individual rights, and defend your property rights at the Capitol, making sure the state government quits putting the target on rural Colorado.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
It's all yours. We have our second mic. And Jason, I owe you a huge apology. I don't know where I came up with your last name, but again, this is Mr. Fun.
Biles is better than bowels.
Okay, so we are now going to enter the question, and we did have some members of the board and others that submitted some questions in advance, so I'll start with those, but feel free, fill out questions and we will pick them up and we will try to get to as many of them as possible. And I see quite a few hands raised, so maybe Alice or Lois, you can help collect those. So our first question, I'll start with a softball, only has to do with the state budget. So the Colorado legislature is struggling with the structural deficit, we're all aware of that. So what programs or services do you think need to be cut to help close the gap between our revenues and our expenses at the state? And please be as specific as you can. And so we'll start, Jason, with you.
Well, after discussing this budget issue with Representative Taggart and Senator Janice Rich, Colorado does not have a revenue issue. We have a spending issue, which most of us can agree on that. The biggest thing that is targeted in Colorado is Medicare and Medicaid. Those programs need to be adjusted so that way we can all get quality care, but without the burden of having to raise taxes or face the budget deficits that we face every single year.
All right, Lina.
Whew, nothing like a softball question to lead us off today. You know, the state has 19 different departments of which they are trying to govern. As we talked about in the federal, there's some DOGE that needs to happen. Having been on the Workforce Council, I was very close to the budget with the Department of Labor. And one of the big things that we found on the unemployment during COVID was that there were almost 27% worth of errors in payouts. And how many other departments have that as well? This required a software update to where they were able to get their error rate down to 10% or a little below 9.97%. So I'm very excited to listen to all the SMART reports, which are those 19 budgets that kick off the legislative session so that I can put some business listening ears to the things that are happening and maybe talk about a little bit of DOGE happening in those 19 departments.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and we had a question from the audience and actually one of the questions, so I'm going to try and combine them. So it has to do with Tabor. So through referred ballot measures and use of enterprise funds, the Colorado General Assembly has been systematically dismantling the Tabor Amendment. As a legislator, what would you do to defend Tabor and reverse this trend? And we'll start with Nina.
Oh, we love our Tabor, don't we? I really do love our Tabor. Where would we be without it? And how come all the fees are not subject to Tabor? And who has really taken a look at those? I know that the Common Sense Institute has done some audits on what those fees are. I know the Independence Institute has as well. I would lean and leverage on those organizations that have those studies that are already done to figure out what more we can do about bringing that to light and all the fees, because while our state income tax keeps reducing in the percentage, our fees continue to go up. And they're going up in not a very fair way. If you look at all the fees in the special districts that are along the I-25 corridor, they probably are 9-to-1 to the things that are happening in rural Colorado. There is no way that we can keep up with that. And it makes it very unaffordable in the rural areas for all of our lives.
Tabor tends to be the biggest talking point to all of us because us as Republicans, we're fiscally responsible. We don't want to spend money that we don't have to spend. And very similar to the idea of implementing DOGE in all of these state departments, I plan on joining the Appropriations Committee, which is going to crucially advocate for less spending in every single department every time the budget gets brought up to us. And protecting Tabor is arguably the most important thing to rural Colorado. Right now, we're probably not going to get a Tabor refund, and that came directly from the governor. So working with our previous elected representatives and former Minority Leader Rose Puglisi, I plan on implementing policies that will protect our Tabor rights, because it is the right, and make sure that we do get a refund every single year without spending the useless money we spend at the Capitol.
Okay. All right, moving on. So I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I think most of us in this room can agree that it's probably a mathematical given that the Democrats will outnumber the Republicans in the House even after the 2026 election. What strategies will you use to get bills passed or killed in that political environment? We're going to start with you, Jason.
Well, I plan on running rescinding bills, right? Because we have way too many laws here in Colorado. So taking away some of those useless laws is arguably the most important thing to me, rather than introducing more laws. Now, the Democrats, they are going to try and kill every single bill that we put out there. That's expected. But there are some policies that we'll implement that can get bipartisan support. For instance, housing tends to be a big issue, especially for people in my generation. But in order for us to work collaboratively, especially with previous generations, I've come up with a plan to allow grandparents and parents to pull money out of their retirement funds and Roth IRAs to help put a down payment on these first-time homebuyer loans tax-free.
Okay. Can you repeat that question?
Sure. If it's a mathematical given that Democrats will outnumber Republicans in the House even after the 2026 election, what strategies will you use to get bills passed or killed in this political environment?
Great. I am the oldest daughter with 3 older brothers, and we grew up on a farm where we had to work every single day until we were exhausted, which of course resulted in a lot of fights. Those fights, regardless of what happened during the day, Dad still made us sit down to dinner table and look at each other, and we had to civilly pass food around the table. I liken that very much to the things that are happening right now. We still have to get along. You still have to have rules of decorum. But there's a lot of times the issues are the same, but how we get there is different. If we're communicating, look, we have the same goals, and how can we do a win-win? I've effectively worked on repealing the I-9 affirmation for the state of Colorado in 2016. My work on the Workforce Council put me with the Department of Human Services to make sure that our CAPS program did not overreach out of the state and conflict with the feds. All of that done under a Democrat administration.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What would be the first bill or issue that you would introduce if elected? And Nina, we start with you.
I want to audit the CPW. I want to make sure that the Wolves' money came from the right funds. When we combined parks with wildlife, neither of them have been successful in implementing the program. And how much of our trails money is going to the Wolves program and how much of our licensing fees are going into parks? That is the first thing I want to look at, is auditing that department.
So I mentioned about the housing policy that I wanted to implement, but another thing that's really crucial to me is obviously the woke left targeting on our children, the gender mutilation, the fact that they have to be indoctrinated every single day they walk into the public school system. I mean, I can go on and on about all these policies, but truly looking at my heart, it's going to be protecting our children and ensuring that the CEA can no longer pour thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars into our local school board election to take out our conservative leaders.
Okay, thank you. So my next question has to do a little bit with housing, and Jason, you'll start. But recently, the state legislature has passed numerous laws related to making housing more affordable that do take away local control when it comes to land use and zoning. How would you address that if you're elected?
This issue is pretty simple, protecting our property rights. The proper role of government is to protect our individual rights and protect our property rights as well. Eminent domain needs to get rid of, simple. The problem with housing is that they're trying to make it more accessible. They're trying to build these small homes, these apartment complexes, etc., which, keep in mind, they're targeting Mesa County. We are a red county, and I would argue that all of Colorado, 80% of Colorado is a red, so we are a red state. But they're trying to move in these young individuals that fresh out of college with these woke ideologies, place them in homes or small apartments, and then eventually take out over our local elected officials, and then they're going to trickle their way up there. They're starting with city council, they're going to end with the state.
The housing affordability is not just in our youth. My mother, who we are trying very hard to keep on her farm in Craig, had to, because the power up there is unreliable with Yampa Valley Electric, we wanted to put in a generator for her, a propane generator. by putting in a propane generator, we had to put $10,000 into this and $10,000 into that. And I say, it really is that I'm living and working in Grand Junction to send back to the third world country of Moffat County. I've been recently endorsed by the Colorado Home Builders Association. I understand intimately some of the issues that are behind the affordability and that behind the mandates that are being put on our local government in order to meet a state regulation. This is, again, part of what the I-25 corridor is mandating to all the rural communities when we need to elect our commissioners and all of our local people to protect our local rights and still fit within our means, because that's the fiscal responsible way to do it.
Thank you, and you brought up the word mandate, and our next question has to do with unfunded mandates. And I think we're all familiar with the work that Mesa County and Commissioner Bobby Daniels has done to point out what an issue this is for our counties in particular. What would you as a legislator do to impact or stop the unfunded mandates that we see coming from the state?
So every bill that is proposed also has a fiscal note. And if you're watching this come through the legislature, there's many times that it comes up with a zero. But on the back third of the page, it says that there'll be inconsequential expenses to the county governments, right? So I think we need to really call them out on what those inconsequential consequences are. Get with CCI, which is the Colorado Commissioners Company, or I don't know, incorporated, and making sure that Kelly and those 64 county commissioners, or the commissioners from those 64 counties, are really bringing to light what it is costing them. And thank goodness we have 50 counties that have stepped up to sign that, including Boulder County. This is not a partisan issue. This is a mandate issue, and it really needs to just be brought to light so it can end.
So I speak with our county commissioners very frequently, and actually I would argue that I'm friends with them. And thank you for two of you guys for being in this room specifically today and supporting whatever candidate you end up supporting. But the unfunded mandates is arguably the biggest issue that they have to deal with every single year. More and more bills get passed, more laws get implemented, but we face the burden of paying for it. That's, to me, obviously wrong, and I think you guys can share that as well. But unfunded mandates need to stop. And we're so blessed that we have the local county commissioners speaking out and running this campaign against the unfunded mandates and bringing light to the fact that if the state isn't going to fund it, they don't need to implement it.
Okay. All right, I'll throw you a softball for a change.
Here we go again.
No, this one truly
Okay.
is. And I think we start with you, right, Jason? So I'm sure you've thought about this, but which committees of the House would you seek to be on that would leverage your unique character?
So I mentioned the Appropriations Committee, and that's just because I'm kind of a money-driven guy. I'm a father and a husband, so I need to make sure my bills are paid on time every single month. But also the fact that I share the burden of having to pay for all these radical ideologies that get passed at the state legislature. I'm also a taxpayer, believe it or not. In addition to appropriations, I plan on being on the Education Committee, the Energy Committee, and our Agricultural Committee. I've been meeting with a ton of our agriculture producers across the valley, and I've even gotten endorsements from said agriculture producers. And they face burdens every single year, whether it be water, red tape, you name it. And so I'm here to defend agriculture because that is House District 54. That is the heart of this district.
I obviously already told you that I'm workforce, so labor and employment is certainly near and dear to my heart. We just do not have the number of companies to the masses that they have in the I-25 corridor, and skills gaps and being flexible in our workforce is very, very important. Also, the Department of Human Services. I think that there are a lot of things that happen at the state level that affect our local counties that make it unequitable there as well. With this and making sure that I'm also involved in the healthcare. I've spent now 3 years on the community hospital board and understand that some of the things that are happening at the state, and House Bill 0023 that is expecting to be introduced soon, that would absolutely break our healthcare system. So those are certainly some of them. I really am hoping that I can get Representative Taggart to mentor me on the Joint Budget Committee. As sick as that sounds, that would just really geek me out.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, if you have any questions or any thoughts that have come up, please put them on the cards and get them to me. So we've talked just very briefly, I've heard water come up. And obviously we are in a severe drought at the moment. And that is an issue that has to be at the forefront as the state looks at moving forward. What would be your approach to addressing the water needs of the state while balancing the very real fact that the western slope is where all that water mostly comes from?
Yeah, it's really hard, right? I mean, God put it on our side of the mountain and then they divert it over to the other side. But they have no requirements on that side to do conservation efforts. Certainly the water that's going into Arizona and into California, why is California not desalinizing water? They've been doing it in other countries for many, many years, and they still push back on doing that. Those are certainly a couple of things. I was at a presentation in Montrose last Friday that Janie did with AgriWest. You can see directly how it impacts agriculture and the amount of livestock that they're able to put into our food system following a drought. So it impacts the food system, and why that doesn't make sense to people is really difficult. I have also been sitting on the Colorado Farm Bureau every month to listen to the issues and the ways that they're coming, that it involves not just water, but also their labor and employment as well. So I would continue to be part of that.
Water is a necessity. We all need water and food to survive. Agriculture producers need it for their livelihoods, to pay their bills, to make sure that they can get from one season to the other. When I was sitting there at my first campaign launch with the Talbots, Bruce Talbot, brother of Charlie Talbot, looked me dead in the eyes and started crying. And he said, "Jason, I am so happy that you stepped up to run, because yes, I support what you're standing for, but I thought no one cared about what we do here. I thought people lost interest and care about our community and our business." He said that he was going to run, but he is so proud and happy to endorse someone who is going to stand up for water rights, and that includes protecting the Shoshone water rights, which is a senior water right in this area, and making sure that junior water rights do not come and infringe on what we have already secured here in the Western Slope.
Thank you. Let's move on to another hot topic for those of us on the Western Slope, energy and energy development, and recent trends by our state leadership, both from Governor Polis and the legislature, to enact legislation aimed at reducing greenhouse gases and climate change. And some of those have proven to be very expensive. So as we look forward, and is your prospective roles as leaders in the House, what's your philosophy? How would you approach what's been happening in terms of potentially rolling back some of these initiatives or promoting more energy development on the Western Slope?
Well, we're in a really good position to take back Colorado and turn it back to a red state. So when we elect our next Republican governor, he will be able to appoint new PUC appointees in changing the current policies that the government is trying to implement on us, which is going to electrical mandates. When I first started my family, I was blessed to work on the rigs. I worked on a little workover rig because that's all I knew growing up. My dad worked in the oil fields my whole entire life, and he told me, if you want to make a good living for your family, get on your boots and go stand in 10 feet snow and freeze to death while we're pumping that oil, baby drill, baby drill. That's something that President Trump said and that we all need to prioritize. I do believe that nuclear is the future. We're just not there yet, right? And until we get good nuclear mechanisms in place, we need to be prioritizing what we already have That's oil and gas, and that's not putting a mandate on builders that they need to electrify the homes.
Drilling, yes. Nuclear, yes. Solar, yes. Maybe not wind. Those things are really bad, and at the landed cost of getting rid of them. But for the most part, our grid it's so demand in usage that we need an all of the above energy approach. I have also worked with Grand Valley Power to make sure that we get good people on the board, to make sure that they understand that the integrity of our grid is vital to survival, especially in the rural. There's a lot of places that can't get to town in a winter storm. So this is very, very important. And some of it, I mean, I've visited places up on S and 4 Road. I don't know how they'd even get to Fruita if the storm was really bad. I absolutely support an all of the above energy approach. I have the knowledge on the grid. I was raised in it. My dad was a line engineer. He raised 5 of us kids on that living.
Thank you. Well, the one other hot topic that I don't think we've really touched yet is education. And seeing a school board member back there, I'm sure Andrea would appreciate kind of hearing your thoughts with regard to education funding, the fact that school district 51 has traditionally been at the bottom of the funding, some of the initiatives that are being put forth. What do you have with regard to thoughts on how we ensure that the education funding is in place for our local school districts?
Another softball, thank you. Certainly the J curve, as it was called when it was first put in front of our state to fund our schools, is not working in our favor. I think it's very, very important that we empower parents, that we let them understand that they have choices in education, that it doesn't need to come from the district. That certainly was top of mind following COVID, but it was in place in Colorado before. If we could do a money follows the student program to making sure that our charter schools are funded in an equitable position with our district schools, and if the union's not getting their money, then maybe they just kind of dissolve for insolvency, right? I think that we need to empower parents. Both of my kids were part of School of Choice all the way through their school careers, and we need to just teach parents how to do that better.
I agree with prioritizing parents' rights. I went through the public school system, and actually I went to school and was really good friends with Nina's son, Rudy Anderson. We had a lot of good memories together. We played baseball since we were kids. But aside from that topic, I have young children, and I'm very blessed that my wife is able to homeschool these kids. So when I do get elected in Denver, I can bring my family with me. Not all parents are in that capacity. Some parents want to put their kids in charter schools or private schools or Catholic schools, but they don't have the funds to do so. My priority is implementing vouchers so parents can do so. Similar to having the money follow the kid, but prioritizing parents' rights. There's no reason that we should be forced to put them in public school and have them get indoctrinated and become woke when we raise them with conservative values. But we can't control what happens 8 hours of a day, Monday through Friday in the public school system.
Okay, I don't see any other cards out there. Oh, all right, while that one's coming up here, I'm gonna offer you each an opportunity to ask your opponent one question. And so Jason, you get to start.
I wasn't prepared for this, I'll be honest. I was told that we weren't going to be asking our opponents questions, as this is going to be more of a forum style. I guess the biggest question that I have for you, Ms. Anderson, is aside from your business that you own, what stakes do you have in this game?
Thank you. I am a 5th generation Coloradoan, so I don't only answer to my family or to my business, but I answer to every one of you in this room. I answer to Routt County and Moffat County that I came from, that half of Moffat County lives in either Fruita or in Cedar Ridge, that I see every day. I think that being a representative also means that you have to be accountable. for the good days and the bad days, and that is what I bring to this district.
Okay, you get to ask him.
I wasn't prepared.
This is not the softball either. Jason, how will you leverage the things that you've learned so far to build coalitions in Denver and be ready on day one?
So I've been promised the mentorship from numerous representatives and previous representatives, such as Rose Puglisi, Rick Taggart, Matt Soper. Now, they can't publicly endorse because they're bound by Republican caucus laws saying that they cannot endorse pre-primary. But post-primary, I'm expecting endorsements and also the continued support before and after elected. Looking to our previous elected officials and our current representatives that we have in place is how I plan on building the coalition. And I've actually been invited next week to go shadow the legislator, tour, and listen into these committees by our current representatives, the minority leader and the assistant minority leader, so that way I can be educated and already do the networking process for when I do get elected. I'll be able to execute everything I want to, that you guys want to, because I work for you, not myself, and certainly not the government.
Okay, so we had a couple of additional questions come in, and then I will let you do your closing remarks and get off the hot seat. But we talked a little bit, Nova did, about there's a ballot issue that's being proposed to actually earmark some of the funding that's already coming in for actual road construction and bridges. And we have seen an erosion in actual highway construction funds over the past few years as we focus on multimodal and frankly bicycle paths and high-speed train feasibilities and all the rest of it. So how will you ensure that Western Colorado, that has most of the roads in the state, will actually see some of the funding come back to actually fix our roads? And
Pardon me. There's corruption in every single department. There's corruption in our roads and bridges. And I would argue our local roads and bridges are actually pretty good. But at the state level, there's so much crud, and for lack of better words, implemented in the policies and what they do. I think it's wrong, the fact that electrical cars get to bypass fees, bypass paying for what us gas producers implement on our roads and bridges. And keep in mind, electrical cars have more torque, they're a little heavier, and they ruin our roads a lot faster than a F-150, just saying. So by implementing policies and making those electric car drivers actually pay for what they should be paying for what each and every one of us pay for, is probably the first step we need to be taking.
I met with the new director of Club 20 last week, and we talked about this. It's very near and dear to his heart and to the group of Club 20. I understand that they want more money for roads and bridges, but they're not being accountable for the money they already have. And Senator Scott, while he was in office, tried to bring this to light. It was a very big challenge for him to speak to this because he wasn't getting any ears on it. So certainly Senator Scott can be pivotal in making sure that this is brought to light and that we look at the work that he's already done, not taking into account that yes, we have all the bridges and more road per mile in each of our counties in the rural area. Maybe we're the ones that need a toll, except I'm not sure, I think they think that Colorado ends in Glenwood anyhow, so I'm not sure where we'd put the toll, maybe up valley a little bit, like at Vail or something. They're just wasting an awful lot of money. I think the work has already been done, and we just need to continue to speak to those points.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you first for the last question. And so Jason, you're going to need to be prepared after you finish answering this question, then you will roll into your closing comments, okay?
Sounds good.
And the actual question reads, what type of private industries would you promote in Grand Junction? But I'm going to expand that a little bit and say,
what would you do in a state that is currently losing jobs and losing residents to promote the economic development that could lead to more job creation here in District 54?
I think our district here has a few challenges in manufacturing, which is why it's only 3% of our revenue here, both getting the raw materials in and getting the finished goods out. That is probably not going to be a spot for us. Healthcare has historically worked well for us in this area, but given the funding mechanisms and the way that we're losing even OBGYN and baby delivery up and down the Western Slope, that's going to be a difficult road as well. We are very creative as a rural community. We tend to lean on each other. I would certainly continue with my partnership to the chambers, both in the Delta, Fruita, and Palisade area, to look at what they're doing with agritourism in Palisade, to look at the things that they're doing in Fruita for outdoor rec, and in Grand Junction, some of the things that they're doing on developing professional services. That is all just staying in with what we are as entrepreneurs trying to meet the needs of our community, and then getting regulation out of the way of meeting those needs.
To prioritize our economic stability out here means to increase not the number of jobs, but the jobs available. The reason why we export our children after they graduate high school or college is because there's not enough opportunity here in the Western Slope. Agriculture is House District 54. House District 54 is rural Colorado. But yet our agriculture producers are forced to go and pull immigrants from other countries to work on their farms, pay them a lot more than what we make here in our other jobs, because there's not enough, I don't know how to word this, but there's not enough highlight on those kind of jobs. And the fact that we shut down every oil and gas drilling rig that we have here in Colorado is wrong. We have so much public lands and so much availability to implement manufacturing jobs, drilling, mining, you name it. So by prioritizing those industries, we'll create economic growth for us and pour money not only back into the state, but into our local communities.
Thank you, Jason. Now it's time for closing comments. And Jason, we will start with you. You have 2 minutes.
So first and foremost, I really want to emphasize again, thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you for the Republican women for hosting this event. And thank you to everyone who contributed to this event. As a party, we are unified that we need more people getting involved. And we all share the same idea that we need more young people getting involved. Right now, we not only have young people getting involved, but we have the right young people getting involved. The ones who are willing to step up and fill roles of government and defend our way of life here in Mesa and Delta County. This is a golden opportunity to execute this shared value and elect one of our very own young Republican conservatives. And I'll be honest, I may not have all the answers that everyone is looking for, but here's the thing. When I'm elected, I work for you guys. And I'll emphasize again, I'm not going to work for myself, and I'm certainly not going to work for the government. So I'm going to be relying on you all, on what policies you want to see implemented, what legislation you guys want to see pushed and passed. I promise to always adhere to the people, and I promise to always listen to your guys' wants and needs. When my family and I stepped into this fight, we didn't do it because we wanted a title. We didn't do it because we wanted a career. We certainly didn't do it for name recognition. We did it because we care about you guys, because we care about Western Slope. And we sacrificed our security and potentially our future just to make sure that you guys are fought for. We knew it would cost us, and we did it anyways, again, because we love you guys. I'm humbly asking for your vote and your support to be your next representative for House District 54. My name is Jason Bias, and I am biased for Colorado. God bless you all.
I want to echo the gratitude that we have for you guys coming out and hearing about the issues and about our platforms and about how we might address some of these. I am a fifth generation Coloradoan. I grew up on a farm. I fed sheep from the back of my grandpa's horse-drawn wagon. So I not only know agriculture and have an appreciation for it, I've lived it. I still send money to my mom almost every month to make sure that she stays on the farm, because at 84, we don't want her to have to move. That was her dream place, and she needs to stay there. That's what us kids can do for her. I started down this path in 2016 when Diane was at the chamber, and her and I worked with Representative Thurlow to repeal the I-9 affirmation, because as an HR person, it made no sense. Having then also been on the legislative committee with the Grand Junction Chamber, we started looking at what we could do for small businesses in healthcare. There was a MIWA Act that we really wanted to try to address, and we were making efforts to do that when the Affordable Care Act passed at the federal government. I have been working on this position and on a state role to be a policymaker for over 10 years. I have built the coalition so that I am ready on day one, that I know the players that have the information that can help us, and they have the history so they can tell us what didn't work so we can move forward. I've met in Delta, I've taken people to Delta. I know those constituents down there as well, because remind you, there's 34 precincts up here, but there's also 14 down there, and they're an important part of this district. I have family that is buried in Austin, and I have family that is buried in Delta. So when we say Western Slope, we don't just mean Moffett and Routt County, we need Western Slope. I humbly ask for your support today. I have additional information over there with my email and my phone number. Would love to hear from each of you individually.
Okay.
So I want to thank you all for your decorum, as well as some very thoughtful questions that came in, and a special thanks to Robbie for being our timekeeper, and Alice and Carla for helping me bring your questions forward. Let's give our candidates one final round of applause.